In this video, let's quickly create a new service, and the name will be, item. So food item, you can even name it as food item. Maybe it might be a little bit too long. Well, it's up to you. At least it's more explicit because an item can be any kind of item. Now a food item has different particular specifications that another kind of item might not have. A food item, we can always extend it to another service later on to item. We can use the inheritance, and so that way we can have item service, food item, and then we can have stuff item or another kind of item such as, like clothing, clothes, for instance, shoes, or could be furniture. That's also an item. For now, let's do food item. So food item service, and here it will be really similar to our user class. Again, we will have a method. It will be public function, and here similar, we will allow customers, users to create, not to create an item, but to retrieve an item. To create, probably we will use a JSON file for now, but to retrieve an item, and there again, for the moment, we might do object, and we have another method. For now, it will be retrieve all. Perfect, like this. And there probably to be an array. It will be actually really similar because we will also use Red Bean PHP. It will be really similar to what we have done there for retrieve all. So you see an array because we have an array, and then we will need to, it will return an array of objects in our API client. And here it will be, array. Yeah, we will we will be able to do actually the same, so array. And from there, it will be really similar. I can even copy this from the user service, and I can paste that one there. After, obviously, we will do some changes, but it will be pretty similar. And there, obviously, it will be a string, and it will be item UUID, and there it will be item, and there also it will be item. We will also get an ID automatically generated by Red Bean PHP that we might have to remove, and you see pretty much it will be the same. And then invalid validation, that will still come from validation, so it will come from there, from our validation folder, which is generic, so it can also fit our needs for food item. Perfect. And retrieve all, again, it will be also quite similar to what we have done. I can also copy actually that, although obviously the user DIL for us, it will be food item DIL, but it will be similar otherwise. And here, there, it will be like item. Here it will be item. Again, we meant like the data structure will be kind of similar for the database. And here, obviously, I can add a to-do command to do change once we have food item DIL. Yeah, let's name it food item also for the DIL. And here to be food item, and I can say import it once we have the food item DIL. Perfect. You see, it will look like this. Let's now create our food item DIL file in src DIL folder. So there you can just create a new file. For me it will be food item DIL. Just create a new file with your text editor, either with Visual Studio Code, PHP Storm or any other kind of IDE, or just manually or with the terminal, just the way you are used to. And so here, class food item, and there I will do public static. It will be static, similar to what we have done already in user DAL. And there, for the moment, we will have only read and retrieve, retrieve and retrieve all. So if I go back to the food item service, in the service folder, which is there, and you see we have retrieve all. So in our food item DAL, let's do retrieve. So there, again, similar to what we have already, we were using get before and get all. So maybe that's better. In food item, let's keep the same convention as what we have done already in the user DAL. So I suggest you then to do that way. But first, we should create a constant. First let's do get, and I will show you why we need a constant after. So here to be a string, and then here $sign item UUID. We don't need food item UUID to be too long anyway. And there we will just return. So public function, I forgot the function keyword. Perfect. And there it will be, first we'll have bindings equals. So again, similar, you see that one, similar to what we have done there. We use actually the same way it works. So we will again look up in the database, and at the moment we don't have that table, but Redbean PHP will create it for us if it doesn't exist anyway. So there it will be food item ID, item UUID, and there the value, it will be like this. The value will be item UUID. Perfect. And here I wonder, public, static function. Perfect. Okay, sorry, static keyword had to be before function. I just I made a typo because I initially forgot the function keyword anyway. And here for the return type, it will be array optional. And there now we will have so we'll import Redbean PHP, and then it will be find1. So again, it's so similar, as you can see, to what we have previously done. You see find1 and so on. Find1, here it will be food items, like this. And here I can actually do item bean. What did I do in user bean? Yeah, let's do something similar. Item bean, and there it will be for the food item. So we want to look for the item, and for doing so, it will be item, that will be the column name, item UUID equals, and there it will be that value, item UUID, and there we will bind it, and we can just use this because we are storing the value. Again, we could have done this instead, but I think it's a little bit more readable this way. And now we don't have to forget to import Redbean PHP like this. Perfect. And now we can do item bean, and it might be optional because if it doesn't find any anything in the database, this one will be null. So that's why actually array is with a question mark. It's because it might be null, it might return anything. And here we do export like this, and we will return this. So we do this. Perfect. So that's for the get. And actually I will store the food item in a constant. Did I do public or private? I'm not sure. Public. Yeah, let's keep the same. Let's be consistent. So public const table name equals, and here to be this one. So food item underscore items. We use the snake case here with underscore, and now there I can do self table name. Perfect, lovely. And here I can create another static function, and it will be get all. So get all, by default at the moment at least, we don't have any arguments, and there, so get all will be really simple, because it will be just return r find all, and there it will be the name of our table name. What does it take? Anything? No. So it will be just like this. And did I add anything else for user? No, we did the same. So yeah, just like that. And that's it. And it will return an array, as you can see in the method signature. It returns, this. So the OODB bin, but in an array. So it will be an array of it. And then we can do, so get all, we can go back to our food item service in the src service folder. So when you are in src service, and there you go back to food item, and here we will first of all we will import this. So we'll import the food item, see our import, and then let's get all, and here we do the same food item DAL, and I will also remove that to do comment. We don't need it anymore. Perfect. So you see we have a little bit more now. We have retrieve for the food item, and here actually it shouldn't be user, it should be item instead. There too should be item. Perfect. And here to be items with a S, and there also items with a S. Beautiful, that looks good. Awesome. You see, looks quite nice. And obviously we will have to create a new file, a new roots file, similar to what we have for user, but it will be for the food item. So what I will do now, I will copy paste. So we just create a copy of it. So copy file, for me I have an option there. For you, you can also copy the file and rename. So new file of the user roots.php. We are in roots folder now, and there we do item or food item. Yeah, food dash item in singular. And by the way, in roots we can already include that one. So if we do item, it will be require once, and there require once because maybe it might be included elsewhere, and we don't want to include the same file twice in the application lifecycle. So this is, here we have item, food item. user.roots.php, like this, in roots. So we are including it. And now here, in our new food item, I will just rename this to food item. Perfect. And there I will, for now, will only keep the retrieve and the retrieval and the retrieve. And here, after we will extend this, because otherwise we have duplicate code and that's not good. We always should follow the do not repeat yourself, that principle, the DRY, don't repeat yourself, and retrieve all. Perfect. So there we will create a new instance of not user but of food item from the service, so from that one, the first one. And now I have this one imported. I will remove the unused user import. So now I have this in the import of the food item roots. So there, let's continue. I will remove the post body for now. Yeah, Jensen. I will see actually. Here it will be item ID, and then it will be item ID, and so here it will be item, then it will be item. Finally we keep this, we are keeping that. Here to be again item action, so we are just rename everything. For the variable name, that's fine, we don't need to do food item, that will be too long, but just for the enum name, because in case we have another enum, we don't want to have any conflict, because here we are in the main namespace. You see, we are the main, the namespace of our root application on EPL7 API simple menu. So that's why we want to be more explicit, and maybe in the future we have item for cups, for instance, or for different things. Here we want to be explicit to mention is food item, but for the variable name, that's fine because it's inside of the scope, and there it's okay too because we have to call this file. Yeah, that's fine too. So it's a variable, but an enum has to be only unique. It cannot have another one if it's in the same namespace scope. So now I have this one here. It has to be food item. Perfect. So it will exist there. It's valid. I don't have any user reference anymore. That's a good news. So we have renamed everything correctly. And now let me see if we need any other changes. I think that's all for now. We can try it actually. Let's go to Insomnia or Postman for you, and in resource I will do item, and there I will do retrieve for action. So I have an error, but that's fine. It must be a type of string. Null was given. It's in line 27. Line 27. This one, oh, we need an ID. Yes. And there, oh yeah, it should be optional. Is it the case for the user service? If it's not, we should also update that one. No, it's not, because it might be null too there for retrieve. You see, because user, otherwise it will be null. Oh yeah, what we can do otherwise, empty string. Yeah, so we don't have to change this, and anyway it won't be found. It will be invalid here for the validation. Yeah, empty string, that looks better. So here I will do empty string in the food item roots. Like this. Perfect. So now if I try again, yeah, that's correct. It's indeed invalid because an empty string is not a UUID. Then it will check validation of UUID. No, not valid. It's empty string. It's like that. So it says no, it's not valid. But at least we don't have like error, like PHP errors. So now, oh, what do I have now? If I do ID equals and then a UUID, I can take that one. For instance, oh, sorry, that's a preview. Oh, it works. This one didn't work. Oh yeah, looks to be working, you see? Obviously it's an empty string, it doesn't exist, but it's already good. And we don't have any item, but at least it works. Even if we don't have items. And retrieve all, oh yeah, lowercase. Oh, looks to be working too. Nice. So now if I go to my database and I do select, if I just first do show tables, I only have one table for now, but retrieve, and ID equals, let me try again that one. Alright, so how does it work? It tries to get the item ID, but the table is not found. If I do select food items, no, doesn't exist. Oh, I made a typo actually. I will just exit here. I will do again, I will connect to my database, and here the item will be .env. That's the password, first the password, and then here show databases, that's valid. I go here, use, and I will probably use the backticks, and now show tables. I only have the users. It didn't create, I think we need to insert something in the, let's do a insert probably. Let's try that. So let's update, create, oh no, it's not insert, that's fine. So I will just do here, I will do public static function create. There, similar to user.dal, it will have like, yeah, entities, and we need, for now we will just make it simple. We will just try to, you know, it's just for testing. So what we will do, yeah, item, I'll go here, create. For now we make it simple. Here to return nothing. We just do item bin equals dispense self table name, perfect. And then here it will be item bin. We want a field name, probably name, it will be burrito chips, I don't know, just a name like that. Item bin, and there it will be name, price, to be like 19.55. I can use a string too, and there, or maybe not, perfect. And there it will be item bin available equals true, so that will be a boolean. And then here we will ask wet-bean PHP to save that one, item bean, perfect. Oh, I need also UUID, so item bean, item UUID, so it will be this one. That's the name of the column we are creating. And there, here we need to generate a UUID, so it will be UUID 4 to be like this. Yeah, so you can see automatically my IDE, my PHP Storm, imported that one. But if for you it's not the case, don't forget to import Rumsey UUID, and there we are just calling the UUID function, which is a static function, as you can see, and that's it pretty much. And now we save it, we store, and so we can just try that one. So if I go back to food item service and in retrieve, I can do, or retrieve all, I can do, or maybe in the constructor I can create a constructor, public function, so no matter in what method we are in, it will create automatically for us an item. Create, like we can say, generate an item for us. There to be food item DAL, create, and that's it. As simple as this. So now we can try that. Invalid type food items. Oh, invalid type. Oh, okay, that's funny. I'm trying to table, and here dispenser. Oh, I don't know. That's the same actually. That's what we have done. That's interesting. Shouldn't be an invalid type. I'm just trying to call that one. Oh yeah, retrieve all. And if I rename the table name without dashes, why it says still saying food item, or maybe it's cached somehow, not on our side but elsewhere. Wet bean. That's coming from another place. Oh, now it's there. Oh no. Oh, sorry. Now it's companion for. Oh yeah, invalid bean value. Oh yeah, sorry. Now the error is much easier to fix. That one, it says it's invalid because item and get, yeah, item retrieve, okay. But if I do retrieve all, item ID, item UID, maybe it's from there then, I believe. So item bean, if I have a look on the user DIL, you see it's similar, and then we create, and then we just store it, and that's pretty much it. So here should be similar. Item UID. I tried to figure out why we have an issue here. let's think. So item UUID, it's invalid. Although dispense, and if I remove this, let's try that. Don't know. So if I resend, oh, it works. So why item UID doesn't work? Oh, yeah, I have the same error now. Invalid. It sounds like it says no, I don't have the ID, but it does have it. It does have it and it's valid, so I'm not sure why that one wouldn't work if I do that way. If I cast it, although no, it won't change. Oh, okay, that's funny. So if I cast it, it works. If I don't cast it, oh, that's interesting. So I have to cast, what kind of type is it? If I do exit here, unwrapped, string, oh, it's the object. Oh, it doesn't return UID. Oh, it returns an interface. Oh, that's why. Okay, I think I see. We have to cast it to a string like this. That's interesting. Oh, I should do toString probably. Then I should do that way. And that way it works. You see, we have to use toString. So for user service, it was working because the way we did was different. Here, it does cast automatically to a string because we have this, and we don't have here on the top, we don't have the strict types enabled. And then if we don't have it, it will cast to a string. If we have this, it would have thrown a fatal error saying that the type doesn't match to what we expect. But there, as it is now, it will cast this as a string, so that's why it was working for user. But UUID, but I will also do a toString here, so it will just be better that way. Perfect. So now, and I have the same then on our food, on the food item service, and in DAL. If I go back to DAL, food item service, food item DAL, you see now we change to toString, and so this one works well. And now if I do retrieve works, and if I do retrieve for only one with this ID equals, yeah, see, and I have that one, and it doesn't show the ID because we unset the ID. Indeed, if I didn't have this, we would have the red bean ID, but it's increment, so that's why it's, we shouldn't expose it, because then people can guess what kind of item, how many items, and what's the item before that one when it was created, because we can see, since is the increment ID is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it goes by that order. So this is why it's better to hide the increment ID generated by WebBean PHP by doing this. And now if I go here, and if I do show tables, I will see the two tables. Oh, sorry, it's now I forgot to rename. I will remove that, and I will rename the table name. So there, food item DIL, there, I will do food item with an underscore. And if I start, it will be a new invalid type. Oh, it doesn't like Yeah, and that was the previous error we had. So yeah, it doesn't like to have a underscore, cannot have use one word. The underscore, it's a incompatibility with Red Bean PHP, and Red Bean PHP won't allow us to use a underscore because it uses underscore with relationship between two beans. This is why it wouldn't work, and it doesn't allow us to use underscore. So just, keep in mind and bear with it, but you cannot have underscore here. Perfect. So now, we have the two tables, and if we go inside of food items, if I just do select from food items, so also select everything from food items, you see I have all of them. Beautiful. So we can already commit this, and if I go here and if I do git add p flag, we have a new blank space there in users entity. Then here we do toString for the UUID. Then here we are including the food item roots in the roots PHP file. Then here we are changing, if the ID request is not found, we give a string to user ID. That way it works with the type. With the type, it accepts from the functional argument signature. And now we have new files too. We have this one. So first I will commit what we had already. What we have, that will just do like refactoring the code. And then now we can add this one, and this one. That's the 3 new files we have added. And here we do add food item service and DAL. Perfect. And now we can push the code. Beautiful. I'm actually thinking about the create method we have created. We call it in the constructor here, but we can probably do it better, because otherwise we'll just end up with a lot of items. If I do now retrieve all, you see I have more and more. We just want to have one if it doesn't exist, and that way Red Bean PHP will create the table for us. So if I go back to MySQL here, it will create if the table doesn't exist. And for doing that, I need to check if it does exist. So basically, if here we check UUID is valid, item, we try to get an item, maybe inside of food item DAL there. Here, if I will do this, and it will be the same there. So where are we going? No, maybe still in food item service, it might be cleaner. Here we'll do, if it doesn't exist, then we can just, instead of returning an empty array, here we can do attempt to create a sample item. If no, oh yeah, but the UUID, yeah, let's do only for retrieve all, actually, for retrieve all, because otherwise here we request a specific item. retrieve all, that's the right one to go. And there, if items, because there you understand, if we mention like it can be a space, it's always a specific item, so it doesn't really make much sense to do that logic there. Only in retrieve all, we do food item DIL create. So if this one is null, if we always get we do count, so the array, if the array is 0, we count the array. So again, when we don't have any, let's just do that. I will show it to you. Var_dump count. Let's just do that for testing. So here first I will remove drop table food items. I will drop the table. Beautiful. Here I will do retrieve all. You see, I have 0. So why do I have 0? Because indeed I have 0 since the array is empty. So now if I do count items, if it's 0, then item food item DIL create, and here I can say create a sample item if no items have been added yet, create the first one. And here instead of create, I can do create default item to make more sense. It's like a dummy item we create automatically. So now let's try again. Let's do show tables. You see I have only one table, users, because I have removed the food items table. But now here, if I try to submit here, there's no item, it got created. And now if I do show tables, I have 2 tables. But what we would like to do is, as soon as we create the sample table, to display it here. So for doing that, here we don't have an item. Okay, that's fine. Then we create one, and then get again all items. Perfect. So here, oops, I will just don't know why the indentation doesn't look right. 4 spaces, not sure why it doesn't do it by default. Anyways, so here, if no items have been added yet, create the first one. Okay, and then we get again all items to retrieve the new one that just got added. Perfect. And then we retrieve again and we display them. So let's drop again the table food items. Now if I do show tables, I have 1 table. For the first time I do retrieve all, and automatically it retrieves that item, because we said, okay, there's no item, we don't have data yet in the table. We don't even have the food items table. Red bean PHP will create one. We create the default item that way, and then we fetch again the table in the database, and we assign again to items, and here it will do the magic. And this happens only if there are no items created yet. But first we have to fetch first if there are items. If there is no items, we create one, and then we get again all items to automatically return always the item there. And then if I do again, you see I don't have multiple new items being created. I only have one because now it has been already added. And now if I do retrieve and ID equals this one, I have that one. If now I change to a different item ID, I don't want a new item to be created because that UUID is just an invalid item ID. Beautiful. You have done a really good job. So now let's again add, let's add our code to our Git repository. So here we have renamed to create default item. It's more relevant. I can actually also change in DLL. I can do return, so it will return automatically the ID, and it's actually ID or string. So here we do like this. Oops, ID or string. Perfect, like that. And then I will automatically return this. So normally it should return. Let's check what it returns. Res, and there I will do a var_dom res. So I will quickly check that. If I go back to MySQL, drop the table, I go to Insomnia, retrieve all. Oh yeah, it's 1. Yeah, so that's the ID, yeah, of the item. Anyway, we won't use it, but in case we need, it's there. Perfect. So beautiful. So now we can continue committing our code. We removed the constructor, and now we do it in a nicer way. If we don't have any data in the database, then we create a default item. And here what I have just done, I changed the create default item signature because it will return an integer or a string, usually a string, it depends, and there I'll return the ID. So here we say, there I will say return the increment ID, the increment row or entry ID. Yeah, let's do that way. And I have added a comment. Perfect. Now automatically add default food items if none has been inserted. Perfect. Beautiful. So now I can push the code. Well done. Let's now check the HTTP method used for each request. Indeed, when we make a request, when a request has been received from our HTTP API client, so from the API client, well, at the moment we don't check these HTTP methods. We should, obviously. We are on a RESTful API, and the HTTP methods matter quite a lot. So here in routes, I will go to first to user.routes, and there I will, how are we going to do this? Let me see. Ideally, yeah, probably inside of the method, because we don't have much room anymore in the user root. We might refactor this later, but basically, so I can actually create a helper function. It will be, I can create it here. and there to be function, and there to be those HTTP method match, something like this. And there we will compare. So first we will do return str to lower. Why? Because we want to have it case insensitive, just in case. Normally it will be, but you know, we cannot trust 100% the client. Sometimes maybe the web browser might send it lowercase, we don't know. Normally it will be uppercase always. So request method, this is what we will use, the global variable there, and it will return the HTTP method, just what we want. So if I do server, because it comes from the server variable, so server, here it will be our request method, and then we have to check what we receive. So if it matches with HTTP method, and there we do string HTTP method, we use the strict type comparison. Always, it's a good practice to do this. And here we do again str to lower to have it case insensitive, and my function will return a boolean, because we just compare if the server request method matches is equals to HTTP method, the one we want to. So it will return either false or true. And now let's go back to, well, to use the user service, and here we can do if, and it will be a post. If it's not a post, then we can just give a throw new not found. Do we have one already there? No, we do. An exception, I believe we don't have a not found. Let's create a new exception in, I'm looking where we might do this. Not found, maybe in roots. So we create a new exception folder, and there I will create a new PHP class. The name will be simply not found exception. That's a good name, it's explicit. And there we can just extend that one to exception, just, you know, the native predefined exception PHP class, like this. And here we do extend exception. Perfect. You can also notice that my PHP Storm IDE automatically added this namespace, which is correct. It has to be this namespace. If it's not the case for you, just make sure you have the namespace with exception, because we are inside of the exception folder. So just make sure the namespace is correct here. And now we can go back to user service. We can throw the not found exception. Here we can do just not found. HTTP method is incorrect. Request not found. Although we want to send a not found exception here and not like an invalid request or something like that. We have our not found exception imported too inside of our user service. So we just check if the post method doesn't exist, we throw this exception, and inside of our user action, or maybe it can be inside of routes actually. I believe we can do that inside of routes. We can do try here, and then catch, and here it will be our not found exception, so we import it there first. Here we just do E for exception, but E is usually the convention, and then here we will just send the not found. We will do this. So the not found already sent a 404 HTTP not found HTTP status code, so we don't have to send one anymore. But already sends a 404 not found code. Perfect. We can do this, and pretty much that's it. Now in the user service, I don't like it because we hard code the post. So what I will do is probably yeah, for now I will leave it like this, but ideally, because we don't have a HTTP class for now, you know what, I will create a new class in the routes folder. It will be HTTP like this, and here let's move our helper function we just created. Let's move that one inside, so we move that one inside of the new HTTP class we have just created. Let's make it static, so public static function for the function, and here I will do final, and there I will do public constant post method equals post. Here I will have another constant, it will be get method equals get. Here it will be another one, public const, it will be put method equals put. Here I will have delete method equals delete. Do we have any other useful one? No, that's pretty much it. And then we have the method. So now in user service, we can just quickly refactor by doing this HTTP, and that one, because the HTTP class, oh, that's in the root namespace, so yeah, that will be even easier. We'll do like this. So here I can import, oh yeah, I have already the HTTP from our package HTTP response header. Indeed. So probably I will create an alias there. You see, this one I will create an alias, and I will do as HTTP response, and then what we had before there. I will do HTTP response, HTTP response, HTTP response, like this. So I just rename everything we did for the PHP HTTP response header. I create an alias, otherwise there's a conflict with the new HTTP class we have created. And let's have a look in our code base for this one. In header, that's fine. We won't have conflict there either. So it's only in the user service. Perfect. We need an alias HTTP response. And now here, this one, I will import also the HTTP because here we are in service. So here I will do use ph7 API simple menu and then HTTP like this. And now I have that one, and here we do HTTP post method. Perfect. So it will look like this, you see? And we use that in our update. So here for the update method, still in the user service, the update method, we need to change this to update. It will be post as well for the update, indeed. So it will be like this, to still be the same. And yeah, nothing changes there for update. For retrieve, get, that's fine. We can check actually, but yeah. Get method, and then for retrieve, we can also make sure it's a get. But here it's not really needed actually. Let's not add more complexity for retrieve and retrieve all. We don't really care. And for put, we do for delete, sorry, we do delete method. Perfect. That's more important there for the delete. Awesome. So now we have implemented the HTTP method check inside of the user service. We don't really need it for now in our food item service because we only have retrieve and retrieve all. So that's fine for now. Let's test this. So let's go to Insomnia or Postman for you. Let's do resource user action. It will be, for me, it will be delete and ID. And I will quickly check in the database, select everything from users to have a UUID. I will get one ID, that one. I will do this inside of the body. But first, I will do with a get to make sure it works. Oh, okay. So I cannot. And now if I do post, I cannot. Request not found. If I do delete, oh, there's another issue here. Delete user. Let's double check in the user service. Let's check in here. Not found. Let's first check another one, like user action retrieve all. That one works. It's retrieve. Now if I do create, oh, I think we have HTTP not found in user. service. It cannot find it cannot find the HTTP class. So this one inside of the user service HTTP. Do we have anything special in there? I think it's because of the folder, how folders are, because it's in root. So normally from our autoload composer, to be able to find it, it has to be like this. And this is why it doesn't find it. So let's move HTTP class inside of where can we add it? Or maybe, you know what? Because for exception we might have issues too. It won't be found because the path won't work. So let's rename roots with uppercase first. So I will just rename to uppercase like this. Do refactor, so it will just rename roots. So if I go to index.php, there you can see now I have roots uppercase there. And inside of our roots, let's change our namespace, and maybe roots, let's do it singular to be consistent for our namespace, and here to be root singular. So root singular. And so when you are in the root folder, there root, here as well root, here too, let's do the same, root, and then here HTTP, root, and exception. I don't really like with HTTP because HTTP class to be in root, it's okay, but maybe later we might change it a little bit. Root here, perfect. And now it should match with what we have. So here to be root, perfect, like this. And then that looks good. So if I go to user service, here to be root, perfect, and there for HTTP I have root like this. So now we should have it. So let's try that. It looks like it's working now. If I do first my name, but the method is still get, it doesn't work. If I use post, it's working because we just have a validation error. But if I do my last name, if I do email, hi@email.com, if I do phone, perfect, and I try this, you see I can insert that user. If I use get, it won't work. Now let's try with delete, and let's try to remove that user. And you see, if we check, we have the new user we just have created. So now let's check with delete, and here it will be user UUID. Indeed, because for the delete one, if you remember, when we remove a user, we are first checking the validation schema, and we want the user UUID to be in the body attribute. And so in our case it didn't work because, I mean, if I now try to do this, it won't work. I need the and if I do this, I need to have a valid user ID. Obviously here I'm on get now, so it doesn't work. But if I go delete, if I do delete and it's removed, sorry. Yeah, you see, I have that issue. Remove, yeah, it's remove, not delete. And then if I do get, it's removed because in our user roots remove, you can clearly see we expect remove from the enumeration. And we have, oh yeah, that's the exception, but it's handled in the roots file, the exception. So here I can just add probably a PHP doc block like this, saying that it will throw the not found exception above get exception, and get exception will be anyway required. It's included in the roots file where we handle this. So now if I copy the user UUID I want to remove, I do this. If I use get, it won't work. Now if I use delete, it says invalid. Oh yeah, I need user UUID. Boom, you see, it worked. And if I do again select all from users, I have one user less because that one has been removed. Awesome, so this looks to be working. Now we have the HTTP. So in MISC we didn't add any functions, and we have HTTP in root. And if I look for root.php, you see we have, I'm just checking if everything looks correct. And yeah, the path looks good. We have included this. So inside of root, now of root we thought S and uppercase R for the namespace to match with the convention. So PHP autoload can automatically include what we want, with this. And we have HTTP, the HTTP class there. And we have created an alias in the user service for the PHP HTTP response header to HTTP response. Otherwise we would have a conflict with the root HTTP class because we would have two same class names included in PHP. We don't know which one to pick up. So now we can commit our code. Let's do this. So first, you see we have renamed the file name. Here too, we have renamed we have changed the namespace for our root files, which is great. And then in root.php, we handle the not found exception. User.root, we also have now root namespace, so it's better. It has its own namespace. Here for get response, we just mentioned with php-doc that it throws an exception which we handle in routes.php by doing doing this anyway. And now in user service we have changed the import, the namespace import, and then we check for create if it's a post method, and there that's because we changed with the alias HTTP response. Here for update to, let's check the update because we didn't check that one. Let's test it. That doesn't work. If I do post, it doesn't work because of the payload, because we don't allow a user to update their phone number. Or was it their phone number or their email? Just have the payload is not correct. Oh yeah, because I know why. It's because I need to have the user UUID to update one, so I will just take one here. Otherwise it doesn't know what user to update. User UUID. Perfect. And here in for the update method, if we go back to user service, so we quickly close this user service for update. If I go to the schema validation, you see phone, we do allow it, but not the email address. Because, you know, like email address, sometimes we change phone more often than we do with the email address, and this is for security reason. So now if I attempt to update this, it works. If I change the different name, it does work. Different name, and then different phone number. And now if I check that in the database, select everything from users where user UUID equals this one. You see it has the new data. And if I change the HTTP method to put, for instance, it doesn't work anymore. So this is also working. So yes, we can commit that. That's the namespace, the alias. And now for delete, it did work as well. So we are confident there. Beautiful. So here I will just also commit the root HTTP and the exception. Oops. So I do git add src, perfect. And now I will just commit this, and I will mention check HTTP methods for endpoints. Beautiful, and I can push my codes. Now I would quickly like to introduce you a little cleaner way to do what we just have done, because again, the logic of checking the HTTP method in the service is a anti-pattern. It's not really good to do that, and normally it's when we defined the root, we also defined what HTTP method comes with what root for a RESTful API. So we just take out in the update method of the user service, I will take out that code, and I will go back to user root, and here actually we don't even need this. I will just remove this. I don't even have to cut the code, or no, I will just delete it. And here in get response, let's quickly, I will just do a trial, like I will just try something. It will be HTTP method equals match here it will be again, it will be this, and there we'll have again self, so self create, for instance, and then here we'll do HTTP post. We want to have it as a post, so I will call this. I wonder why constant. Oh yes, because I didn't. Oh yeah, let's create an alias similar to what we have done in our user service. So HTTP response here as HTTP response, like this, so at least we won't have conflict. It's exactly the same issue that we had previously in user service. Perfect. So now we can use our HTTP. I will just import that one, the use PH7, and then here it's API simple menu, root, and HTTP is that one. So we are just importing, or we don't even need, because we are on the same namespace actually. So here we are, now we are defining, we define for each endpoint what HTTP method it has to be. Here to be post as well for the update one. I just wonder why we still have this. It shouldn't be the case anymore. Oh, sorry, it's not correct actually. It's post method. Yeah, that's why. Post method, perfect. And then here for retrieve, I will actually move this to be more consistent. I will move update there just after create, and here to be self now retrieve all. Then we are also going to check for the get one, then we are going to do for all of the endpoints. So here to be a get method, self retrieve, it will be also a get method, perfect, and then remove, it will be HTTP delete. Beautiful. And then we need the semicolon. Don't forget that one because we use match. And finally, we can check here if, so I will just check there if HTTP, those HTTP methods match, and I pass this, the HTTP method, so I can rename this to expect HTTP method. Expect HTTP method, perfect. And then I can, similar to what we did, I will just throw a new exception, and it will be not found exception, and I will just take the same message. It will be HTTP method is incorrect, request not found, and I will also remove that code from create in the user service, and same in remove method of the user service, I will also remove that one. So we just undo what we did in the user service, and I will just remove the import, the not needed imports anymore in the user service, because we don't need these imports anymore. And so if I go back to user root, here I just have the message now, HTTP method is incorrect, request not found, semicolon, and then retrieve, or here it has to be removed, like this. Beautiful. And here I can do check the HTTP method check first if the HTTP method for the requested endpoint is valid. Awesome. So I have my comment, and that should be it. Let's see. So if I go to Insomnia or Postman for you, that works. If I change put, oh wait, update is put, oh I believe then we have a little issue. It doesn't work. Does HTTP, oh sorry, it has to be the opposite, the negative one. So if it doesn't match, then obviously we want to throw an exception, and we can make it more readable by not using the exclamation mark. So we won't use the exclamation mark, but instead we will use equals false. To me this sounds a bit more readable. And now let's check this. Request not found, yeah, that's valid. Put request not found, that's correct. And here, and that works. So it looks to be working. I want to update my payload it's not valid. I will create a new user, email, perfect, and I will try to create. It works. If I change to get, it doesn't. If I want to retrieve a user, because now we are also checking for the retrieve, that retrieve all, this works. If I use a put, it doesn't. So yes, our new logic works really well, and we handle the not found exception again. It's the same way in roots in there. So we have just moved the logic from user service to our user roots because it makes more sense that way. So lovely. Now we can commit our code. We can, you see, we have changed the namespace for roots because now we are using the HTTP class in the user root. So the HTTP class is that one. We didn't have to import it obviously because it's in the same namespace scope. And then we are checking here the methods. So obviously for each endpoint, I know at the moment it's a little bit of duplication of code, but we can always fix that later to have it even nicer. So here you see we check the HTTP methods, and then in user service we removed the logic for checking the HTTP methods because it wasn't right to check it there. Beautiful. So now I can commit my code, refactoring, move the HTTP method logic to user roots. Beautiful. And now I can push my code. Lovely. All right, now let's check the email address of a user because we will allow a user to log into our application and we will generate a JWK token once the user has been successfully authenticated. But for doing so, we have first to check to make sure we don't have two same users with the same email address because the email will be also used as the credentials to log in. It will be the password and the email. And we will also create a new field for the user, which will be the password. So for doing so, let's go to DAL, user DAL, and there we can, first of all, we can update the entity here. We have password already, so that's amazing. Then in user DAL, we can add a new function, and the name will be public static function is email, or maybe does email exist. Here to be a string, it will be email, it will be a boolean, and there we do user bean. We will have a look in the table user, so find one, self table name for users, the table name, and here we will look user, it will be email, email equals, and then email, we will bind that, and here we do email, and the value is this one. Again, we bind it so we don't have SQL injection. We have to bind it correctly like this, and now we do return user bean to make sure if we have something, it means the email exists. So here I can do I can just return. Actually, I will just do this as simple as this. I will just return like that, and there we cast it as, or maybe I can do it's not null like this to make sure it doesn't return null, because if nothing is found, it will return null. So I will just have this condition: if find one doesn't find any rows, it returns null, meaning the email address doesn't exist. Perfect. And now when we create a user, so for create, if I go back to my user service, there we'll first look here, we'll do user dir does email exist, and there we'll take the email. I can do that actually here over there. So I can just use from user entity, I will do get email, because there we set the email anyway, and if there is no email, get email will just return null. So let's do that way. We check if an email exists or not. If it does, then we will throw how are we going to do this? I will throw new email exist exception like this. So we'll create a new exception probably, and then when we call create, it will have to handle the exception. Then we might be able to do, we might be able, like in user root, when you go to user root, we will do email. So because in user service we will throw the email exist, email exist email address, email address. Email exists exception, and there we do email exists exception, and there we will add a, it will be again a 400 that looks correct about request. We will give this, and we will just do response equals, and that's in the user roots, and there it will be errors, and here we'll have message, and we'll have only a message get exception, get message. So we need to create the email exist exception. Let's create a new exception folder in the service. So that folder will contain all of the different exceptions we might have for our different services. And here I will do email exist exception. We'll extend to exception the predefined class from PHP, or maybe invalid argument. Yeah, we could also use invalid argument exception. That's also a predefined class. Or maybe the runtime. We can use the runtime exception. It doesn't really matter at this stage. So we do like this. And there I will use this exception. So I will use it first in the user service. I will make sure to import it because it's in the exception namespace from the exception folder. So we have to use the import of the namespace, and then here I do email address already exists. Perfect, like this. And then I can even do sprint if we want to give this to the client. I mean, from the response of our API. So it will give also the email. So email address %s already exists, and here I will use this. So I can store that like email equals, and now I can do this, and I can do that. Perfect. So that's when an email exists already. Beautiful. So we throw the exception, and then in user roots I will also import the email exists exception, and then I will just do, we send the request that is not valid. So this is for the email to check before creating a user. We will also add the password. So if I go to user, if I go to the isCreate schema valid, let's also add a mandatory password field attribute, and we will we will encrypt the password. So v just be a string type, pretty much. Do we have a minimum and maximum value? Maybe we can set, like, we can create two new constants, or maybe one only for the minimum length. minimum password length equals 5 or 6, that you can change this anyway, and here it will be length, and there I will have self minimum password length, perfect, like this. And so I'm validating the password if the password length is correct, and there we can also set password data password. However, we need to hash the password like what we said, so we do hash password. This is from PHP 5.4. They implemented a password API hash or password hash, and it's really handy because we can hash passwords much easier than before. Before we had to implement our own password encryption with SOD, prefix, suffix to make sure the password is unique. Here we use password hash. We can use also a algorithm, otherwise the default one will be used. But this is really powerful. Oh yeah, we have to mention the algo actually. So there we have to do let me check for the algorithm of the password. We can have a look at the constants, the list of the constants we have available. Let's check that. Oops, it's a little bit slow. Oh, obviously if PHP.NET is down, that's a little bit annoying. Password hash PHP, and then we can go here. It might still be down. So yeah, we have to, this one that we listed recently in a previous PHP version, a better algo. You have password default, we can otherwise for now use the default one. I'm just looking for the list. Oh yeah, that's we have a bcrypt. We can use, yeah, we just use the default one for now. Let's not bother too much with this, but again, this is important because it's about password, so it's about security. So to be password default, I believe, yeah. Still, yeah, PHP website is still down for now. Password default or 2y. You see, oh, that one is, so we can use that one. The Argon 2i, so it's available since PHP 7.2. That was the one I was speaking about. Yeah, we can use that one because the default one is actually the password bcrypt. That's the default password. So let's use that one. And you see we hash the password, and in after we will implement the login endpoint as well for the user. So now I can just try to create a user again. I will do post, and here now I have to mention a password, and in our backend it will encrypt the password. It always works this way. So there's a password. You see, it works for the email. It does exist indeed. So now if I do +2, I have my new user, and now if I try to send again, email address already exists. So that's wonderful. It works properly, and we have the 400 bad request. This is what we want, and this is what we sent from user routes. You see, with the proper HTTP status code. Now I can commit the code, and we can see we have those email exist that returns a boolean. We have the exception, the new email exists exception. We send a error message back to the client if the email already exists, and then in user service we throw an exception if the email exists, and then we have private const, that's for the password, because we also added the new field password when a user creates an account. And actually we can have a look here. If I do select all from users in the database, I can see in the field, if I do select password, it doesn't. By the way, we don't save it yet. So that's really good. We checked this because we sent the password there. That's correct in the user service with the user entity. We set the password, but when we create the user, so if the email does exist, we proceed here. Otherwise, we throw the exception, and it does exit. It leaves the create method. But if the email doesn't exist yet, we proceed to create an account. But here we don't set the password. So let's do user bin password equals user entity get password. Perfect. And now the password should be there. So let's try to create a new account. I will change my email, and now I can check in the database, and yes, we do have the password field has been added here. And so if I just select password, you see I have my password encrypted here. Let me double check again by changing to another one, and I will change the email. And now I have two. So if I select only password, you see, and that's the encryption. I will double check on php.net. The website is still down apparently. Password hash PHP. And it's a really nice one, because before we had to use like SHA1, which wasn't very secure. But before, pretty much passwords used to be encrypted with SHA1, which was already much more much safer than MD5. That one was terrible. But back in the days, like 10 years ago, a lot of passwords used to be encrypted with MD5, but it's not a very secure encryption. It's easy to guess and to find the password. And obviously when SHA1 was used, it was more secure, but not as much as today's. So now when we use here, we can also use that one, but when we change the algorithm on the way we encrypt the password, on the way how password hash will be encrypted, then we have to rethink all of the passwords, because it won't work anymore if you change the algorithm, because it won't match with the previous algorithm, the way it was encrypted. So we have to be careful to stick with one default algorithm. We will stick with the one we set, but you can obviously also use password default. In our case, we just want to be a little bit more secure, and this is why we use password algo to I. If I go there, now PHP looks to the website is up again, and here you see this was the proposition. We can also use memory cost, time cost. You have a few parameters you can set if you wish. The password API from PHP has a lot of different features. And yeah, so now, well done, you have encrypted the password, so we can just commit what we have done on the changes we have done for the user DLL for adding the password to the database. And yeah, that was it. We just set the password and we retrieve it from the user entity. I will also add the exception, our service exception, which is the email exists exception. And now I can commit this. Make sure a user has a unique email plus save and encrypt password. Perfect. And I can push my code. Beautiful. Again, here for the password hash, if you want to go further in the security, you can always set a cost, and the cost could be like 12. The higher the cost will be, the more CPU it will require. So you have to keep in mind that it will use more resources for your server. Cost 12, it's fine, but again, you have to be careful. And like I said, for the algorithm, you can, always set password bcrypt. That's also a good one, which is the default one too. In our case, we keep it as agon to I, and cost 12. This is optional, but we can also leave it as it is. Now, a good way is to store this in another function. So we'll use probably the helper there maybe, and there we do function. You will understand why. Hash password, and there we'll just do this, return here to be string password. And what does it return? It returns or false, null, or string. So we can add the type there. And this is just to have, it's more handy. And here it will be the cost. We can always create another class if we wish, or even another service, but for now we can just use this. And the cost 12, that's a good number. And then now we can just do hash password just like this, and then we can remove this. You see, so it's just a little bit shorter, and we know hash password has exactly the arguments, the parameters of the password hash we want. So it has a proper argument. We don't have to think, oh, which argument do we need there for that for that function. it has them there already. We could also move this in a class, in a different class, like it could be password or security class, and then we could also store the cost somewhere. Here I could, however, do like const factor password cost factor equals 12. I can do that, and I can use the const here. I don't use define because we don't have a condition before assigning, before defining the constant. So we can use const, but however, if we did like a condition and then if it's true, we define a constant, I need to use define. So by using const keyword outside of a class, it's a bit faster, it's more optimized, it's more efficient, but you have to keep in mind that const is defined at the compile time and define is defined at runtime. So const is a language construct and define is a function, and this is why it behaves differently, but also that's why const, when you use const globally like this, and this is actually available since PHP 5.3, when you use it like this, well, it's more efficient. It's nicer to use const instead of a function, but because it's a language construct, you have some limitations. That's why const can define a constant only at compile time, and define, however, on the other hand, can define a constant at runtime. And now we can quickly test this. You see, it's a little bit cleaner. We could also, by the way, just a suggestion, we could have added the hash password even on this user service, like a private static function, but maybe we might hash passwords later on for, I don't know, admins or for affiliates or for a different kind of user, not user. So that's why that's why it could be better to leave it here in our MISC in helpers. Anyway, now we can just quickly test just to make sure we have a little error. Oh yeah, it's not, it cannot find it. So hash password, I believe it's because, oh no, I'm not sure actually why it can't find it. That's interesting. Call to undefined function. Right, because it's in the scope, and MISC, where do we include MISC? If I check in the directory of our project .inc, oops, normally it's in index.php, we include MISC. We don't, because that's why we don't use MISC yet. This is why. Right, now it makes sense. Yeah, because this one we are still using JSON encode everywhere. So that's why I got a little bit confused. Yeah, we could just do response, but we didn't. So now let's first include MISC here. After helpers, we can do require dir, and then we can just quickly do src helpers misc.inc.php, and now it will be found. Perfect. So if I change the email to something else, and here we do Pierre, and here we do Henry. Awesome. And now if I check in my database, select all from users. Oops. Select all from users that way. I have my new user, so if I select that one, where user UUID equals this one, I can see my password, everything looks correct. Lovely. So now I can just again commit this, and I can do like add new hash password function. Beautiful. And I can push this. Now let's quickly create a login method for our user. So you will see quickly, because it will be quite simpler compared to what we have done already. So here it could be sign in or just login. Let's use login. And there what we will do, well, we need to check first if the credentials of the user is valid. So there to be mixed data, what we receive from the API. And we will do if. So the first thing we will do actually is to have a schema. So I will need to go first to user routes to create the login endpoint. So self login, that will be for the HTTP method, and the login will be a post method as well. Here I will create a login in the user action enumeration. So case login equals login, like this. Beautiful. So we have HTTP, yeah, perfect. I made a typo. And here self login, and we will call the user service login method we are creating we are creating that one at the moment. And that's it for the login here. But now, and it's complaining because of the return type at the moment, you see. It cannot be a void, but we will create that. We will change the return type to be similar to the other ones. And when we check the login, we need first to add a validation schema. So there I can just do in the user validation public function is login schema valid. It will return a boolean, and here I will do schema validation equals, and then we have v attribute. It will take the email, first email, and the email will be, to validate an email here we just do string type. It's only for validating if what's in the body is valid, but the user is already inside of the database, so we don't need to check the length and things like this, because we just want to make sure what we have, what we receive in the payload of the API is valid, but it doesn't really matter of the length of the values. So now attribute, and here to be password, similar to that one, but again we don't validate the length. For the create endpoint it makes sense because we don't have the data in the database yet, but here we do have the data in the database, so we just want to make sure we have email and password in the payload of the API. And here do this data. Perfect. So that's our login schema, our login validation schema. And here I will create an instance of the user validation equals new user validation, here to be the data we receive. And then I'm doing user validation. Is login schema, is it valid? If so, we can proceed, and there I will first check if, and here we have, I will first check if the email is valid. So user DAL does, same as what we did for create, but here to be used the other way around. If it does exist, if there is an account with that email, and here we do email. If it does exist, if we have an account, and here to be password verify. Password verify, it's the again still from PHP API, password API, similar to password hash. We have, and we moved to MISC. We use the same. Here it's password verify and data password. Perfect. So if this is valid, then it's a good news. Otherwise, I mean, that's a good news. Otherwise, we will throw invalid credentials. We'll throw an exception. Invalid credentials, invalid, and exception. And we will be able to create that exception in our exception folder, in our service folder. So here I do credentials invalid exception, and here I will extend to runtime exception. Perfect, like this. I'll just import that runtime, the predefined PHP exception, and here I do I have to import that one too. So if I do this, use PH7 API simple menu exception, where it's exception. We are in the service, so service first. Service exception. I will actually move it to there so it's more consistent, and then credentials invalid exception. Beautiful. I think we might have a typo. Invalid credentials. Yeah, I will. Invalid credentials invalid. Maybe let's keep that one, that name. And here, if it's valid, wonderful, that's amazing. We can then create a JWK token by doing encode, and we will use that. Obviously, we have to import the class Firebase JWK. That's the exciting part. And there first, we need to mention a payload. So we need to create first a variable. Otherwise, you can just directly create an array inside of the encode one. That's up to you. So we can do this. I made a typo actually. I said JWK, it was JWT. So please replace JWK by JWT. JWK, that stands for the key, and here it's the token. JWT is JSON Web Token, and JWK is JSON Web Key. It's two really different things, and for us we need the JWT instead. And here we have JWT encode, that's correct. And so if we check the signature, it needs to have a payload. And for doing so, I will mention the payload. There's the documentation here, so you can have a look. And we need first the ISS. So ISS is the issuer. So for us, it will be our domain name. For the moment, it will be this one. We can actually store it in our env file. That's a good practice, because otherwise we will have to change it there. It's not good to have it hard-coded. So if we go to our env file at the top, we say like URL, API URL, and then we can say app URL equals, and here to be our domain. And we can add the same to the env distribution file. So we have the same, they are both up to date. And now we will be able to do this. And then it will be app URL for the key of the environment variable, like this. And now we need to have the AUD. So that one, well, that one actually is not really important. It's the audience URL. So we can skip that one. If you look, AUD is this one. And now let's have the time when the JWT was issued, when the token was issued. And that will be, it will be this one, so IIT. And for that one, we can simply set the time. So here we create a new variable, current time equals time, like this. And there I will add current time. And finally, here I will add the expiration of the token. And there we can simply we use the current time. So we just first use the current time. And after that, we are going to do plus, and it will be for an hour. So plus 60 times 60. We can even do this. And that will be expiration time 1 hour, probably just valid for an hour. Beautiful. And now pretty much that's it. We can even add, if we wish, like some data about the user, although that's not really necessary, but we could use, for instance, the email of the user. So here I could have email. So it's another array, data. And there we have the email of the user. And we could have also the name of the user. Like I can have name and so on. This, however, we will just complete after, because we actually need to fetch first the details from the database of the user, which we haven't done it yet. So what I will do first, I will, after here, so if the email exists in the database, I will create a new condition, and there I will just close the brackets here. And here, what we will do, so if the user, if we have that email address that is found in the database, we will create a new function in our user DLL here, and we'll do public static function get by email. And there, if we want to be explicit, we can do get by ID. We can rename that one. So that one in the user DLL, we can just rename it to get by ID, like this. And here, and so we have to rename it as well in the user service. In the user service where we were there. And now, so it's more consistent, now I have the get by email. So get user by email. Here it's an email address. And then it will return again an array. And here I will have bindings. It will be email this time. So that's the name of the variable. And here it will be email we want to bind. And here it will be user bean equals r find one, similar to get to when what we did to retrieve a user by ID. It's really similar. The name, the table name, and there we have email equals, and here it's email equals email, perfect, and here bindings, beautiful. And now we can return it, user bean, and here I do export, perfect, just like this, you see, and we get to the user by email. So here what I will do, if it's not that one, is, where is it? It's this retrieve, is this one. If the email does exist, we do user equals user DAL get by email, and here I will mention the email address like this. And then from there I will be able to check the password properly. So if the user exists, if it does exist, it's nice to check that first. If this one will return something, then we check the password, and here for the password verify, it's the hash of the second parameter, and this is what we store in the database. Indeed, if we check in the database, the password is the hash we store. So this is what we need on the second parameter, the second argument, user password. So now we check if the password is valid. If it is valid, then that's perfect, that's really good. We can then proceed with the JWT token, and then if it's not, if it doesn't work, we will leave throwing this exception, credentials invalid. And if the schema is not valid, then we can reuse the same exception as what we did before for the other methods, for the other endpoints. So invalid validation exception, and that one will be there. If the schema isn't valid, we go there through new validation exception, payload invalid, similar to that one. Invalid, oh sorry, it's invalid validation, perfect, invalid validation exception. And otherwise, if the schema is valid but the credentials is not valid, then it will throw this one. And once that one has been thrown, this one won't be reached, because the exception, we throw the exception and it will directly right away be caught in, is it in roots? Not in roots. Probably by, yeah, it will be caught by our JSON handler, this one, our JSON response handler, the exception. So now we are here, and now we have the user data loaded, and if the credentials is valid and so on, I can even do username equals, and here I will use double quote to interpolate the variables. So we'll do user. Here, unfortunately, it's not bad, but we have to use an array because with Redbean PHP, it will return an array for now. So I'm just checking in the documentation. But yeah, it will be an array. Later on, it's not a problem because later on we will load all of the data in our user entity, and so we will be able to do user get first name from the user entity, because later what we will do when we will retrieve the data from the database, this one, for instance, the get by email will return the user entity, and so we will be able to use the object from the user entity, but that will be a later refactoring. So for the moment, that's fine. Let's use the array. So it's not an object like this, but it will be this one, first name. I need single quote here, first name, because in the database the name of the column is first name and last name, and that's why I need double quote to interpolate the variable. But because we have a key of the array here, I need to surround it with curly brackets like this, and then it will be user last name. Again, I need the curly brackets here because we have an index of an array, and otherwise it wouldn't work. So if I had only one variable name, like last name, and then it will be first name, in this case I don't need the curly brackets. But because for us it's an array and I need to access to this index of the array, I need the curly brackets like this. Beautiful. And here I have username, so I can uncomment this, and I can use name. It will be username. So that's some specific unique details of the user. Awesome. We store it as well. And then here I need, if we check in the documentation, I need a decode, encode, I need a key. So the key for the moment it will be example key. I will store it. So let's store it in our env file as well. JWT key, and here it will be, yeah, I'm just looking if everything is correct. Here it will be uppercase, and in our env file, so similar, env, that one, similar to what we have done for the database previously, and what we have done now for our API URL. I will also do JWT key equals, and for the moment is similar to this, like example key. Perfect. And I will also like this. I will also save that in our env dist. There to be empty, however, just like this, and there env, so JWT key. And finally I need a last argument. It's for the algorithm, how we will encode this. So by default they show is HS256. So HS256 means SHA. So this one like SHA1, which is really not secure. 256 is much more secure. we have also the 512 SHA. And when you see HS, it's the same as SHA. So in our case, there was a nice article here about the JWT, you know, which algorithm to use. And you can use the 256, that's fine. We can use the 512. It's only the number of bits actually. So the 512 is 256 bits, and the 256 will provide a 128 bits of security. So for us, let's use the 512. Here, 512, it will be well secure, and we can mention HS and then 512. However, let's store this also in our env file, JWT algo, probably that will be the name, and then 512. I go, maybe encryption, probably, for the name. And I will also save this so in my env and my env.dist file, .env and .env.dist, HS 512. I'm just looking like a little bit in the library. You see they support different ones. 512. So they support a bunch of them. ES 384, ES 256, ES 256K, and so on. RS 384. Oh, about the RS, let's have a look. Yeah, you can signature algorithm means I think it's a little bit a variant. Yeah, let's use the SHA. Perfect. It's no longer, you see, RS, at least that one will still be suitable for digital signature. If we look like it's HS 512 VS RS, it was 512 as well, yeah. And we can have a look at share secret. And I believe HS might be the winner. Well, both can be used. So recommended at this time, or is RS 256? Yeah. Asymmetric. It's really up to you which one you want to choose. You can also do some research. You always have new encryption algorithms out there. newer ones more and more secure, because nowadays, computers are so powerful. So this is why they need to have stronger and stronger algorithms for encryptions and be developed. Yeah, you can decide. For us now, we will stick with the HS512, but at the end of the day, you can just make your own opinion. We will keep that one, and that's perfectly fine. So let's use it from our env file. It will be JWT, and remember the name, JWT algo encryption, like this. Perfect. So now I can assign JWT here. I will take the value, and here, because the authentication is successful, we can just do, similar to there, like we will return an array, and here to be token first, and the token will be our JWT token, and I will rename it to token to be more explicit. JWT token, and there here message, for instance, and there to be, I will do a printf like this, and here to be s for string, successfully logged in, and here to be the name, username from there, like this. Beautiful. And now we are all done. So we check if the email exists. If it does, we get the user from the email address. We check the password with the hashed password saved in the database, in the users table, that password. And then we create a JWT token with JWT encode from this. I will remove that. And finally, we are returning the token and a success message. So now let's have a look. Let's test it. So here we can do user login like this, and there we set my email and my password I previously used to create a user, and our password on an array. I think I know why. Here it has to be array like this, because that's the data we receive from get by email, and it returns an array. So it has to be like this. That's the password. So now we can try again. You see, I have it. And now I can see Pierre Henry successfully logged in, and that's my token. And again, I could have changed to here, if I change in my env file, HS, and then I do two, like, we can use different ones. I don't know why by default here on the documentation they mention 256 HS. Well, yeah, it's like the default one, 256, which is not a bad one. And I make sure that I restart my server just for the env file to make sure everything is reload. And here local host 8080 to make sure that one and that one will be taken into account in our application. Here you see the token is different, but for us we will use this one, the 512 anyway. And now you see, bigger, isn't it? And if I change my email to something different, it says credentials invalid, which is nice. However, we don't want to expose this and the file name to the end user from the response of the API. So let's hide this, and to hide that, we will just catch the credentials invalid exception in our we can do it in our routes.php, because maybe we will use also some kind of credentials for admin, for affiliate, for another kind of user. So it might not be only used in user routes. And actually that exception is mentioned in our exception folder, nothing to do with user only. So let's catch it in our routes.php to be more generic. And here I will do another catch. So with PHP we can catch several different kinds of exception. And here I will just do, or maybe I will move it above like this. And here to be JSON encode message, or I can even use our from the helper we have from the MISC response. Let's use that one because we haven't used it yet. And here to be message, and there we use the message, get message from the class, from what we sent. So the message is credentials invalid. So now let's test it. You see, nice, that's amazing. And if the password is valid again, or the email, if I change my password, you see invalid. So now I can create another user, email, password, what else I need? First name, it will be Henry. Last name, it will be Soria. And then I need my phone number, because remember from our validation schema, we validate for creating a user. Phone is also mandatory. And then I do phone. Perfect. And now, do I have an error? I do apparently. Email. What is it? Why? Oh, here, I forgot the colon. Perfect. So normally now, last name. Oh, here I need, the code was also missing. So I create the user. Oh, the email already exists. That's my new user. So now email password, just need this. And I do create. Now I do login. And boom, you see, I'm logged in now. I can even change the response to have the message to be above like this. That can be nicer. And also if I change the method to something else, you see it doesn't work, because again, we do also the validation in our user routes for login post method. So yeah, well done. Now let's commit our changes and let's see what we have done. We have two new environment variables. three new ones actually: our app URL, our JWT key, and our JWT algo encryption. This is from env.dist because the env file, we don't commit it since we have it in our git ignore file. We obviously don't want to commit that one. I'll just do perfect like this. And now we have the get by ID. We renamed it to be more consistent, to be consistent with our new function get by email, and at least we are more explicit. What do we get is getting by a user ID, and there is getting by an email address. And then we have, oh, that one I will just do, that's also to do. Let's go quickly to not found exception. Our class not found exception. So that one, if we go to exception in root folder, exception, not found exception, and there it will be better actually to extend from a runtime class. It's just a bit cleaner. It's runtime, and here we have credential invalid exception because we have imported that one since we catch the message when the credentials are not valid. If I do this one, you see our lovely message. And then we continue. We have the login for the method to test it. And here we have the new endpoint. We have added in user roots. Then user, we have our new amazing method to log in a user. Here we check with the get by ID. We renamed it to be more consistent, so there's no other changes. It's only renaming in the retrieve function of our user service. And here, that's also a suggestion I have added in invalid validation exception. If we go to invalid validation exception, let's extend to invalid argument exception. That's also a predefined PHP exception class. And that one is a bit better because it's an invalid argument when we have validation errors. Just to be a little bit more explicit with the names of the exceptions we extend to. And here is the login schema. That's our schema for the login endpoint. That one in user validation. Perfect. That's just a comment. And that's the enhancement we have done for our two exceptions to extend to better, more accurate, predefined PHP exception classes, runtime, and the invalid argument. Perfect. So now we can commit this. We also have a new file. It's the credentials invalid exception. That one. And I will add it as well to the staging area of Git, and then I do git commit add login endpoint with JWT token generated. Perfect, beautiful. And now we can push our code. Amazing, we have done it.